back in 2007, my wife was pregnant with our second son, and I was thinking a lot about legacy. I was thinking about all the things that I was going to pass on to my child, and I was thinking about all the things I was born with. I was just, I really had this urge that I didn't want him to be born with any of my sins, with any of my stains. I wanted him to come out into the world clean. That started it. I had, for like 20 years, I had wanted to make a triptych movie. I had seen Abel Gance's Napoleon when I was in film school, where the ending was like 3 screens, this big 3-screen triptych at the end, and I always wanted to do that in a movie. And then also I had seen Psycho about 20 years ago too. And I'd always known that there was this shower scene in Psycho. I just didn't know that you spent 45 minutes with Janet Leigh before she went into the shower. And that kind of blew me away. And so I was always thinking of this baton pass of the narrative, And I felt like a story about legacy would be perfect for that kind of passing, passing of fire.
You worked with Ryan Gosling before, Blue Valentine, and you had a conversation with him prior to making this film. He said something to you.
He said a lot of things to me.
Yeah, can you share some of that?
One of the things he said to me, he said, well, I was having dinner at his agent's house in 2007. This was like 2 years before we even shot Blue Valentine. And my co-writer, Ben Cochio, and I had been working on this screenplay for a little bit. I was having dinner with him, and I started saying, hey, you've done so much in your young life. What haven't you done? What do you still fantasize about? And he says, well, I always wanted to rob a bank. And I said, oh, really? That's I'm writing a movie about a guy who robs a bank. I said, how would you do it? Have you given it any thought? And he says, yeah. I thought I would do it by on a motorcycle, because I could go in with a helmet and it would disguise my identity. And then I'd leave on the motorcycle because they're very fast and agile, get out of tight spots, And then he said he would have a U-Haul truck parked about 4 blocks away, and he would drive the motorcycle into the back of the truck, and no one would be looking for a truck, they'd be looking for a motorcycle. And I said, you gotta be kidding, that's exactly what we had written into the script. It was one of those times when I knew that we were destined to work together, to make some stuff together. And so I said, hey, I'll make your dreams come true.
Well, it's all about collaboration with the director and their actors. So let's talk about Bradley Cooper. He's very hot right now. He was just nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah.
So he looks very different in this movie.
Yeah.
So when did you shoot this? What year did you actually shoot it?
We shot this 2011. So this was the film he made right before Silver Linings. It took a long time to edit this movie because it was just so huge, I didn't get it finished. We started shooting before Silver Linings, but I didn't finish editing it until way after that film. But yeah, I wasn't really interested. I had written this character, and I didn't know who was going to play the guy, and so I was meeting a ton of actors, and one of my meetings was set with Bradley Cooper, and I was like, the dude from The Hangover? And they're like, yeah, he's a great actor. I was like, well, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know what kind. I wasn't that excited about meeting him, but I would meet with him, And when I first met with him, there was just something about him that struck me immediately. There was something. There's something he was wrestling with. You know what I mean? There was something going on inside of him. And it really challenged my preconceived notion of who he was as a guy. I thought he was just the sexiest man alive, But there was something else going on, twisting inside of him, something he was dealing with. And so I kind of rewrote the script for him, based on him. And I kind of wanted to write, kind of wanted the audience to have a similar experience with him that I did, that he was this character that was kind of the all-American hero, on the outside, and the guy who's paraded around as the good guy, but on the inside he has something that's corrupting him. And I thought that Bradley could play that. It could be interesting to see him play that.
We see the film, we see the finished product, but we kind of want to get behind the scenes and go, what's it like to actually watch the director work with the actor, the process? So how do you work with your actors? How do you get the performance out of them?
The 2 things I always tell my actors after I hire them is surprise me and fail. Those are my 2 requests for them. I was doing a documentary on Danica Patrick all these years ago. I spent a little time with her, and I asked her. I said, how do you go so fast? You know, simple question. And she said, well, her whole life, what she had done is she knew how fast she could go, and whenever she would race in a car, she'd go that fast, but then just a little bit faster, and she'd go to the point of where she could crash. And oftentimes she did crash, but it was by going to that crashing point that she was able to get better and push her boundaries. And so I tell my actors that that's the biggest gift they can give me, is on set to fail, to make a fool of themselves, to fall on their face, to get it wrong, because I know if they can be brave enough to get it wrong, they can also very effortlessly then get it right, you know. And then as a filmmaker, I was always an audience member before I was making films, you know. So whenever I'm directing a film, I think as an audience member, and I think about what kind of films I want to see, and I like being surprised. So I feel like if I'm on set and I'm surprised by something an actor does, I feel like in the audience they'll feel the same thing, you know. So I'm always, you know, like this script, I wrote 37 drafts of this script, but, you know, at the end of the day, if the actors did the script, it would be disappointing to me. You know, it'd be kind of boring.
I saw an interview or read something about you that you don't like to write by yourself.
Yeah.
What is that about?
I started writing a script one time called The Man with Purple Eyes. It was about being scared of nuclear war, I guess. I like writing about my fears, you know. But it took a year, and I got 10 pages in, and then I kept going back to the beginning and perfecting that 10 pages. And I realized that what that meant, you know, that was the international symbol of being crazy. Because you're going in circles, you know, doing the same thing over and over again. So if I have I never write alone. I have to have someone to talk to. And to me, that's the nature of cinema. It's a collaborative art form. You know, it's not like being a painter where you have to have all the good ideas yourself. You know, it's a collaboration. So as a filmmaker, I consider myself to be like the coach. Then my actors and all, you know, everyone else I work with are like, that's my team. You know. I try to just bring out the best in people.
I don't know about you guys, but there was a lot of tension in this movie tonight. And Ray Liotta, that guy scares the out of me. And I love his intensity. I haven't seen him in a while. It was nice to see him again. So we have to talk about Ray Liotta.
Yeah.
But I think they would love the story. Growing up, one of your favorite movies was Goodfellas.
Goodfellas, yeah. And when I first met my co-writer Ben Cochio for the first time at the Donut Pub in New York City, I found out his favorite movie was Goodfellas. And so we made a pact that we would write a movie and write a role for Ray Liotta in it. And then 5 years later, I'm sitting at an audition, and Ray Liotta's sitting across from me. And it was just it was a dream come true, you know. And then, you know, if I asked him if he'd be in the movie, we wrote the role for him. He agreed, came on set. You know, I brought him over to my house to introduce him to my family, you know, and I introduced him to my kids. I had a 4-year-old boy at the time, and within 30 seconds, Ray Liotta made my baby cry. And I thought to myself, wow, I can't wait to put him at the dinner table with Bradley Cooper.
Any questions? Okay. Can you hand the mic over there? Okay, great.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how you doing?
This is a great movie. It's really
you.
good. I have two actually distinct questions.
Yeah.
My first question was, did you encounter any interference or hesitation with Ryan Gosling in regards that there's some similarity between his character and Drive with the camera?
You know, we were talking about this film, you know, 3 years before he even made Drive, you know, so it was always kind of planned. And I don't think either one of us thought that there was any similarities beyond just like some real surfacey things. I think Nick Refn and I are very, very different filmmakers, you know, interested in different things.
And then my second question is, I noticed that you used some musical cues to match symmetry between the father and the son. So I was wondering if you want to talk about that.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, you know, the film is built in this, you know, it's very structural, built in this triptych, and you know, almost every scene has an echo to another scene. You know, there's doubling of everything. You know, doubling of characters, and the doubling of, you know, echoes of scenes, similar scenes. You know, you got Ryan giving back the money to Ava, she won't take it. You got Bradley giving back the money to her in the same spot. And yeah, we were trying to always double, echo everything. And then same thing with the music. We were just trying to use music in a thematic way that would kind of echo these things. Because to me, that's what the movie was about. It was about the echoing of generations. Yeah.
Over here, okay.
I also have two distinct questions. The first one is, moderator referred to the opening shot. It's a very long tracking shot. It makes you think of, Touch of Evil, some of the other, or of course Goodfellas,
Yeah.
which you're mentioning. I was wondering if you could talk about that and, how difficult it was to set it up and make it, because it goes in and out and it goes, to the motorcycles.
Yeah.
And then the second one would be what was it like casting the teenage actors? Did you try to look for traces of Bradley Cooper or Ryan Gosling in them since they were his sons, or something different?
Okay, good questions. Sean, well, I'll say this, my cinematographer for Blue Valentine, Andre Perec, was supposed to shoot this movie, but he called me 8 weeks before we started shooting and said that he had a dream he died making the movie. And he was crying on the phone. He's like, I can't do it, Dee. And I said, oh, I was really bummed out, because he's great. So I had to go find another DP. So I was meeting with all these DPs, and I met with Sean Bobbitt, and I loved his photography, from like Hunger and later, Shame. Anyway, I told, Sean asked me very frankly at the breakfast. He said, "What's wrong with your movie? Why did your DP drop out 8 weeks out of production?" And I said, well, he thought he was going to die making the movie. I had a dream he was going to die. And so there was some silence at the table. And then I said, Sean, do you think you're going to die making the movie? And he said, don't be silly. He'd been to war. He was a war photographer for 8 years, and no, he wasn't going to die making the movie. So I was like, okay, you're hired. That's why I need someone really courageous for this. So we came in. We were designing the film, the visual style of the film, and we were trying to design a lot of long takes. I feel like in long takes, there's no lies in them. You know what I mean? You don't have the manipulation in a long take. And so we decided we had to start the movie out with this kind of epic opening shot, because I think in like the first 5-10 minutes of any movie, you kind of teach the audience how to watch. You show them how they need to watch, and I wanted the audience to be engaged and alert and active. I like the audience to share in the movie a little bit, and to stalk this guy, And so we set this shot up, that we timed it out so it would be just fit the credits just perfectly, go from the trailer through the carnival into the tent, into the Globe of Death. And Sean insisted that he goes to the center of the Globe of Death at the end of the shot. And I said, well, Sean, that's crazy because there's going to be 3 motorcycles in that cage, going around you. And he says, no, we must go to the center. We must end in the center. Now, Sean, if you've ever seen him, he's a man of stature, He's not a small man. So I said, well, just, protect yourself. So he put on all this armor. He put on a helmet. He kind of looked like RoboCop with a camera. And he did this shot, and it was beautiful, this long take, and I was watching it all in the monitor, following right behind him. Once we went into the tent, I hid behind tearjerkers. I hid behind the bleachers, and Sean went into the cage, and the cage closed, and the motorcycle started going around him, and I was watching my monitor, and it was amazing. It was magical, abstract, visceral, and then all of a sudden my monitor went blank. It just went static, and I looked up and there was a gasp from the crowd, and Sean was on the bottom of a pile of motorcycles. And we pulled all the motorcycles off of him and, dusted him off, and, Sean, are you okay? And, no, he wasn't okay. He was mad. He was mad at himself for not getting the shot. And I said, well, look at the bright side. You're still alive. Let's just stay outside the cage. And he said, no, we must go to the center. And I said, you're crazy. Don't go to the center. He said, just stay outside of the cage. He said, no, we must go to the center. So we did the whole take again. And, this time it was even better. I don't know how he improved it. And, cage closed, throttles rev, motorcycles go around. And at the exact same moment, my monitor went static again. And this time a motorcycle had dropped from above, stalled out and dropped straight on his head. We pulled him off, and he was out of it this time, you know. So we took him back. We had to cancel production, go back to the hotel, and you know, that night at like 3 in the morning, we got a call from the security guards at the Holiday Inn saying that there was a man walking around in a bathrobe asking for the tomatoes. And so we took that man to the hospital, and that man had a concussion. And you know, the next night he came back, and yeah, I would not let him get in the cage. And he's still mad at me. He still doesn't really return my phone calls.
You know, I just want to say, the reason why I pointed that shot out, wasn't that an incredible shot? Did you see how engaging that was? And so, I just thought, I've never seen motorcycles like that before inside of a cage.
Yeah.
So everything he went through to get that shot,
Yeah.
that's something else.
Yeah. There's 22 people in America that can do that shot. And I'll say Ryan Gosling isn't one of them.
Now, to your second question was
The
about
kids.
these new kids, the new generation
Okay,
actors.
so it's, you know, this movie's taking a lot of, it's really challenging to make this movie. We have these baton passes, not just one, but two. And, you know, with Bradley Cooper, I feel like I found someone who could take the baton, you know, like Tony Perkins took it from Janet Leigh in Psycho. And then we have to do it again, and I have to find kids, you know, and I gotta find someone who can fill those shoes of these two movie stars. And, you know, my casting director had found, you know, had went out to this kid, Dane DeHaan, for him to play the role of Avery, you know, Bradley Cooper's kid. And Dane apparently said, well, he didn't think he was like AJ, and he didn't want to try out for it. And, but he put himself on tape as Jason. And my casting director told me this story, and I was like, well, who is this kid? You know, he's kind of arrogant, isn't he? Thinks he knows more than you do or that we do. You know, he's too good to read for AJ. I said, you know, forget it. You know, we'll just find him somewhere else. So this tape sat there, and I looked at 500 kids in the meantime, did all this casting, and started getting desperate. It was like 6 weeks before production. I didn't know who I was going to put in these roles, and then I remembered, oh, that was that kid who was too good for the role of AJ, you know? And so I watched his tape, and I realized why, you know, because he was right. He was Jason, you know, he was the perfect kid for it. So we, you know, so I called him. He had actually made the casting tape before he went to South Africa to shoot Chronicle. And it took the whole production of Chronicle for me to finally watch it. So I watched it, and 3 days later he was, you know, he flew back on the whatever the red eye is from South Africa, and he came in and he did you know, he did a reading with me. And then, you know, in Hollywood the term du jour is like a chemistry reading. So you get a couple actors together and see how the chemistry is going to be. So I had all these other kids to play AJ come in and read opposite him, and Emery Cohen came in, and they just had a way about it, about each other. You know, they were like two young lions kind of sizing each other up, you know. And so I had to break the tension in the room. I said, well, who's your favorite actor, guys? And Emery said, no question, Marlon Brando. And Dane was like, I always liked James Dean. And then they proceeded to get in this really heated argument for 10 minutes about who was better, Brando or James Dean. And I thought to myself, this is perfect. I can just let this dynamic go, you know? And eventually I said, okay, guys, one more. Okay, stop. We can agree to disagree. Who else, you know, name another actor that you like. And Dane says, well, I've always liked Al Pacino. And Emery was just shaking his head, and he said De Niro. So that's why I cast them, because they felt cut from the same cloth.
Question? Okay, over here.
Microphone's coming to you.
Microphones are coming. Just raise your hand and we'll bring the next mic to the next person so we can keep the questions flowing.
I'm a big fan of Ryan Gosling, and I know I've read a lot about him in his preparation for roles, that he contributes a lot
Yes.
to the role, and I'm really curious about what he contributed to this one. And also, did he do his own stunts? Was he on the motorcycle?
Okay. He contributes a lot. He's a magic person. Yes. One of the things he contributed was he called me, I don't know how long, a few months before we started shooting, maybe 6 months, and he said, hey D, how about the most tattoos in movie history? And I said, you want a lot of tattoos for the movie, huh? And he says, yeah, and I'm gonna get a face tattoo. And I said, really? A face tattoo? And he said, yeah, face tattoos are the coolest. He says, and this one's gonna be a dagger, and it's gonna be dripping blood. And I said, well, you know, if I was your parent, I would tell you don't get a face tattoo. But you're a big boy, you know, you're a big guy, you know, you're this guy. do whatever you want. You know, I'm like, I can't tell you what to do and what not to do. He says, don't worry about it, D, it's going to be cool. I said, okay. So first day of production, we're shooting, and there's something bothering him, you know, during lunch. And he comes up to me and said, hey, D, can I talk to you for a second? And I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, I think I went too far with the face tattoo. And I said, well, I hate to say I told you so. And he said, do you think we can, you know, lose it and then reshoot all that stuff? I was like, absolutely not. I said, that's what happens when you get a face tattoo. You regret it. You know? And now you got to live with it for the rest of the movie. And you know what it did was this beautiful thing. Instead of this, you know, probably Luke thought it would be cool too, but then all of a sudden, you know, there's this scene that we have in the baptism, you know, and you know, 500 of Schenectady's town folk, all dressed in their Sunday finest, show up, and Ava Mendez is looking beautiful, and Mahershala Hajbaz Ali is up there on stage with her, and they're holding the baby, and the baby's name, by the way, is Anthony Pizza Jr., which means his father's name is Tony Pizza. That's just an aside. Anyway, so Ryan comes into this church, and he's made all these decisions, and he's literally a marked man, you know. And I told him, come into the church, find a place to sit. You know, I put the camera in the back of the church and said, just come in and sit down. Well, he had no place to go. He didn't fit in anywhere. He couldn't sit down with everyone else, so he walked to the side of the church and found a place in the corner, and he sat down. So then I took the camera and we moved in for a close-up, and we were shooting this close-up of him, and this shame, this regret, this remorse he felt, like I started seeing his body start to shake, you know. And as his friend, I wanted to just stop the cameras and give him a hug. And then all of a sudden he just started breaking down on camera. That was never written that way. So, you know, I'm interested as a filmmaker to find a place where acting stops and behavior begins. And I think I like including actors in on their choices because there's repercussions for choices, you know, and I think it made it much more interesting, you know. And what was the other question? Oh, stunts. So, you know, Ryan rides a motorcycle. There were certain scenes in this movie where I wanted to shoot single takes, you know, like the scene where he comes out of the bank, you know, and has to start up his motorcycle, go out into traffic, and go through an intersection and avoid 36 cars. And I couldn't hide a stunt guy in that anywhere. I needed Ryan to really do it. And I know about Vic Morrow and the Twilight Zone, you know, and I don't want anyone to get hurt on the movie, you know, but I also want it to be dangerous. I want it to actually be dangerous. So Ryan starts training with this stunt driver named Rick Miller. Rick Miller is the guy, you know, whenever Batman gets on a motorcycle, that's Rick Miller in the bat suit. He's like the best motorcycle stunt rider. So Rick is training Ryan. We're 8 weeks out of production, and at the end of the training session, I asked Rick, I said, scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate him? He said, about a 3. And I said, that's no good. I said, okay, well, you got 8 weeks. Realistically, where can you get Ryan in 8 weeks? He said, look, 3.5, 4. He said, look, it's like basketball. You know, you got to play from you're 6 years old to be in the NBA. You know, he says, you know, it's a lifetime of training. I said, well, all we got is 8 weeks. We don't have a lifetime. Do what you can do. So he trained him. A day before production, I see Rick after their last training session. I said, scale of 1 to 10, where did he get to? And Rick said a 7. And that speaks to Ryan's kind of ability. You know, he can do things that normal people can't do. In the Globe of Death? No, there's only 22 guys, and he's not one of them.
Great
Punchline.
question. Okay,
Hi.
ready for you.
I was just reading about the first 30 pages of an earlier edition of the script, dated May 1st, and there wasn't the baptism scene, and then there was a scene where he had issued a parental rights. So how do you get from there to where, I mean, like, how many changes?
I just keep
Evolution.
writing. I just keep writing until I'm on set, basically. You know, I don't. You know, it's 37 drafts. I just take the time that I'm not shooting to work on a script. You know, and then when I'm shooting, I work on the script again. The script is never locked, you know, to me. And then when I get in the edit, the script is the first thing in the garbage. You know, I'm just trying to find what you know, the discoveries I've made with the actors. I will say with this script, this shooting script was 158 pages, and my financier said that they would give me my money if I got it under 120. So I found where the shrink font button was, and I extended the margins.
Right.
And no one caught on.
Yeah, final draft cheating.
Yes, final draft cheating, no one caught on. But you can't really run away from it. It's like the tragedy in this movie. It's like you can't avoid it, you're gonna run into it anyway. Because I was 6 months into the edit, and I had a 3.5-hour movie on my hands. And there's no shrink font button in editing.
Yeah. Now with the different styles of photography, like the shaky cam was really working when Bradley Cooper is going into the house to find Gosling, and then you must have had cameras on motorcycles following them through the woods. So can you talk more about your
I don't know
cinematography
what, I've
choices?
heard that shaky cam term, but I've never known what shaky cam is. I know handheld. And Sean is hand holding the camera. He's one of the best handheld cameramen too. His whole theory about hand holding the camera is that he tries to engage with the physicality of the character he's following. So left foot, right foot, he tries to mirror their walk. So when Bradley is running into the house, he's also viscerally in the same place. So that's just what, you know, he was just running with him. And then, yeah, there's the scene in the woods, which is, you know, kind of our run on the Death Star scene. And I felt like I just wanted to be in a place that I couldn't be, you know, which is on the wheel of a stunt motorcycle going through the woods at a dangerous speed.
Okay, this young lady.
I wasn't on the camera.
You have a question,
No.
so you get the last question, okay?
So the passing of the torch, as you were mentioning earlier, that's a very rare thing to see in movies. I actually was thinking Psycho, and you had it on the screen, but it was very well executed. I was curious about the actual shooting scene that you did. It was kept full pace, very realistic. Nothing was slowed down or emphasized, and I thought that was very well used in its context. Were there any other thoughts you had about it, or during the shooting, that affected that?
Yeah, you know, one of the things I was also interested in exploring in this film was violence, and like most notably gun violence in a movie, which I'm like, I'm so sick of it. You know, I'm like sick of seeing it. It's so boring to me. I think, you know, I don't know when violence became so cinematic. You know, it must have been Sam Peckinpah or something with all the slow motion cameras and, you know, in the End of the Wild Bunch. But I like the way Peckinpah does it. I feel like he's kind of writhing in the flames with his characters, you know. But kind of this modern fetishization of violence with slow motion. Like, I don't need to see another slow motion bullet go into someone's brain. You know, I'm not interested in seeing that. And I have kids, and as a filmmaker, I don't want to put those images into the world. I'm not interested in the viscousness of violence, you know, or how visceral I can make it. I was interested in the narrative of violence with this movie, and I wanted the violence to happen. You know, if you've ever shot a gun, guns they're so fast. You know what I mean? It happens so fast when you squeeze the trigger, and so I wanted that speed to be there. You know, I wanted it to be real time, and I didn't want to ever go back. I didn't want to, you know, life isn't like the movies. There's no flashback. You know, there's no going back, and there's no slow motion. There's no ballet of violence. It's just violence, and then, you know, it's the things that lead up to violence, and then the long aftermath of it, and that aftermath can last, you know, generations. And so I wanted, you know, as an audience member, I wanted the, you know, I wanted the audience to feel it, you know, feel like a true absence in the movie.
Hey, thank you so much for coming out. We really appreciate it. Great questions tonight.
Thank you.
Please go see the film and bring a friend. And I'm telling you, when you go see this film, all those moments where you felt uncomfortable, didn't that feel good?